Hi, everyone. My name is Norma Nieto, and I'll be facilitating our Automate Employee Workflow with RPA webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. First, the session is being recorded, and the download link to the recording will be shared with you afterward. Second, we will have live Q&A at the end with our presenters. To ask a question, please use the question feature on your GoToWebinar control panel, usually found at the right side of your screen. You can use the question feature during the presentation itself if questions arise while you're watching. For any questions we can't get to in our live session, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the session. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenters for the day. First up, we have Mike Snell, who's our VP of Solutions Delivery here at CEI. Mike has over 25 years of experience leading teams to create software that clients love, and he's led our solutions group for over 18 years. Mike is a recognized thought leader and has successfully delivered projects in nearly every industry using almost every technology out there. Next up, we have Jeff Tewksbury. Jeff is a principal architect here at CEI, one of our technical thought leaders and true rock stars. He is responsible for leading onshore and offshore teams on large complex engagements and has over 16 years of experience in cloud, software development, architecture, and design. Jeff is a Microsoft certified applications developer and a Microsoft partner technology solutions professional. Also joining us today is Dylan Kaufman. Dylan is an associate developer and recent Temple University with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. And he just joined us here at CEI, so we're very excited to have him. He's front-end focused in libraries and frameworks like React, Gatsby, and AWS Amplify, and he's excited to help companies craft innovative solutions with cloud technologies. And last but certainly not least is our closer, Sandy Marich, our VP of Strategic Alliances here at CEI. He's responsible for initiating and developing CEI strategic partnerships that deliver successful enterprise solutions for our clients, which include alliances with UiPath and other emerging technology platforms. Before I turn it over to Mike to get us started, this is the content that we will cover today. We already did our introduction. Mike will provide an overview of RPA. We'll go into a demo, and we'll present a case study, tell you a little bit about CEI, and then go into our Q&A. Okay, Mike, take it away.
All right, thanks, Norma. So what I want to talk about first was some of the challenges that folks face, that RPA solves, right? So let's talk about the gap that RPA solutions fill within organizations. So process automation strives to really simplify the mundane, repetitive tasks that make up a large part of sort of modern software interactions between humans and their process. If you combine it with AI and machine learning, RPA is really going to help reshape how people interact with software applications to do things like process documents, respond to customer needs, and interact with coworkers and other parts of the organization. Done right, hopefully it'll free workers to focus on more meaningful activities and less sort of mundane data entry type activities. So we know most organizations have a number of processes that can take advantage of RPA, and we'll take a look at a few of them next. Go ahead, Norma. So why RPA, right? So again, RPA is going to help focus and shift employee focus from the mundane to the more meaningful. There are a number of use cases where RPA is applicable. We see customers that have repeatable processes around things like invoicing, customer interactions, HR activities, and they can quickly find meaningful results with an RPA solution. While RPA should help you take advantage of existing applications investments by automating a number of tasks such as filling out forms based on the context of a given process, it should not be seen necessarily as a replacement for application modernization. It may be a stopgap for some older systems, but oftentimes the first step to successful RPA include optimization of the process itself and sometimes modernization of the software. We'll talk about some of that stuff here in a minute. But overall, in general, these are some of those core use cases where you will see big ROI in terms of RPA implementation. So in fact, we're going to look at how we prioritize some of those use cases in the next slide. Go ahead, Norma. So when we think about prioritizing use cases for RPA, if you have processes that leverage software, and almost all processes do, there's likely a need for some automation. To find those that drive the highest ROI, we look at these three things: high volume, high value, and high stakes. So high volume are processes that we do all the time, such as maybe medical claims or customer returns, any place where we feel we're doing this a lot, right? We don't want to automate things that only happen once a year, but rather things that happen many times a day across many interactions, across many people. High value are those that are critical to the organization. We need to get these right. These are things like customer service. We don't want any poor interactions with our customers that are going to result in bad brand image or something like that. Or money processes where we got things like month-end close, or places where delays in approvals cost us money, right? And then, of course, high stakes. High stake processes are often even more critical. This is where a process mix-up or a human error could result in fines or missed deadlines. We've all sort of seen processes like these, oftentimes as a result of mistakes in the past. This is where we've got double and triple and quadruple checks that make these processes drag on forever. And instead of adding humans to the process, you can leverage things like RPA to be that additional set of eyes and help improve the overall workflow within the organization. So these are ways you can sort of identify those use cases that really are meaningful to a successful RPA solution. And we'll look at that, how we sort of chart that path here in the next slide. Whoops, can you go back one? There you go. So the path to a successful RPA adoption. So most organizations, because RPA is relatively new, they're not, at that sort of RPA center of excellence at this time. Instead, a lot of organizations are at that beginning stage where we talk about strategy. So how do you start if you're just getting started with RPA? Like most things, we suggest you start with that overall strategy. In that step, you'll take a look at all your processes, but you want to find those processes that meet the aforementioned criteria of high volume, high value, and high stakes. You'll look to establish some level of baseline ROI estimate and start to identify what an RPA team looks like. And the RPA team, while it's certainly made of developers, it's also made of process people and business analysts and things like that, so that they can really sort of dig in where we're going to get the most ROI on our efforts. And next step, you might take a look at the tools that are available to you. Here, we're looking for tools that align with your needs after you've taken a look at that strategy and roadmap. And then you're looking at your current application environment, where your development skill sets lie, where your current solutions, how they're built, what's available to you. And we can often, CI as a company can often help customers compare the many tools in this space because we've been exposed to them over time. And that third step is a critical one. The one in that light blue is to start looking at a process or two as a target for a pilot or for those first initial optimizations. But before we start developing a bot, we want to have an analyst go through that process in great detail and look for optimization. Automating bad process is not a great idea. Instead, we look to improve that process first and try to simplify it and where we can. And oftentimes, just having conversations and talking to the people, you say, well, these three things aren't really needed and we should probably be doing this. And that's where we can often make a big impact before we even do the automation. And then when we start doing bot development at scale, which is that orange box, this is where the RPA team can then take a look at some of these high value processes and start developing bots in the 2-week sprint cycles, right? So initially, you're going to want to do a lot of review, refinement, and confirm the effectiveness of the overall strategy. Make sure you're getting the ROI that you intended. And then you'll certainly learn a lot from putting a few of those bots into production. And then you can start building up that towards that RPA center of excellence. So that should be, and the reason why we talk about an RPA center of excellence or just an automation center of excellence in general is because you shouldn't really look at this strategy as a one-time deal. Instead, you want to keep automation at the forefront of all future development, whether it's RPA or otherwise, because good process workflow always has a strong RPA in all software. So that's our overall path to successful RPA adoption. Go ahead, Norma. So one of the things that we talked about a minute ago is tool selection, and the tool selection options out there are wide. There's a wide variety of options available to you. It's a big step given the current application landscape. It's relatively new products and tools, so there's many players and there's more folks getting involved every day. These are a few that we found to be top contenders. This slide sort of gives you that high-level picture. So you see there in the top left, we've got UiPath. This is, aligns well with folks, that write .NET code. They, can leverage a built-in framework. They've got, there's a lot of drag and drop functionality. It's a commercial product. It does a really nice job. And we've got another tool, Automation Anywhere, that is very similar. It does have a natural language component as well. It makes it a little bit sometimes easier to automate. And then there's the open source version, the Robotic or Robot Framework Foundation, and there's another commercial product available called Blue Prism, supports both Java and C#. And then there's a Microsoft solution, which is the Power Platform, and they've recently bought a company and integrated it within that Power Platform. So the Power Platform, I think we're going to do a talk on that in the future, but it includes the ability to write low-code, no-code solutions, but also to do automated workflows using Power Automate. So these are just some of the tools that are available to you, but as we mentioned previously, as part of your strategy, you're definitely going to want to look at tool selection. And oftentimes you can do a pilot on two or more tools till you find the one that makes the most sense for you. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Jeff and Dylan to go through a demo of a process we automated around expense reports and receipts using the Azure Form Recognizer and UiPath to automate our NetSuite implementation. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, yeah, thanks, Mike. So yeah, I'm going to kick it off to Dylan here in a second, but I wanted to quickly talk to you guys what it is that we built to give you guys a little context. So Mike mentioned repetitive mundane tasks and the fact that RPA is a great tool for helping to alleviate some of that and allow people to focus their time more strategically. And so we decided to take on a bit of a pet project here at CEI that we worked on some this summer. Still a work in progress, but that's what we want to show you today. So the solution is around expense automation. So, we as consultants, not so much, in the recent months, but prior to COVID, there's a lot of travel. We would spend a lot of time on client sites. I'm sure we'll get back there hopefully eventually soon. But we tend to accumulate a lot of expenses, receipts for travel, tolls, mileage, meals, things like that. And I will be honest, and I'll say that I am definitely a culprit of this. It can be hard to keep up with those, especially when you're traveling quite a bit on a weekly basis, and so those receipts tend to pile up. We use a tool called NetSuite, and that's where we submit our expense reports back to CEI as consultants to be redeemed. The process that I go through and that many of us go through to do that is a little bit cumbersome. And we're aware of tools like Expensify and Concur and things like that can help with this. But we really decided we're engineers. Let's take this on and have a nice project that we can actually work on here. So the process prior to this, what Dylan's going to show you that someone like myself would go through is about every month or two, go through my wallet, pull out all the receipts, which are probably in a shuffled order. And then I have to go through and basically take pictures of all those receipts. Then I have to go ahead and transfer all those to somewhere where I can organize them a little better. And I put them into folders based on clients or projects or things like that. Then what I need to do is go back into NetSuite and I need to submit each receipt, which requires some information about each receipt, right? Like the amount, the project, what was it for? Was it for a meal? Was it for a toll? Things like that. And then also upload an image of each receipt back into NetSuite. And that again falls in line of that repetitive, mundane work. You know, I'd rather spend my time focusing on some more maybe strategic, enlightening things. So what we built is a React Native app where we can go in, and that's what actually Dylan has on the screen here, which we'll walk you through in a second. It's a React Native app, which is running on Dylan's phone, which we can go ahead and use to take pictures of receipts. We then take those receipt pictures and we push them up to our Microsoft Form Recognizer, and we go ahead and we rip out information on that receipt based on Form Recognizer, mainly the amount, you know, the subtotals, as well as the dates. We then kind of can accumulate those in this app, and then with a click of a button, we can submit all those receipts at once and make a call out to UiPath to go ahead and take all the information that we've gathered and automate the process of entering that into NetSuite. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dylan to kind of show you how all that works.
All right, thank you, Jeff. So as Jeff said, on the right here, we have my phone, and then on the left, we have our receipt. So we're actually going to go through the process of creating an expense report and then submitting that to UiPath to fill out for us in NetSuite. All right, so I'm going to hit the Add Receipt button, and this is going to open my camera. I'll go ahead and take a picture of this receipt. And the picture that I just took is being sent off to Azure's Form Recognizer, and that, like Jeff said, is going to pull important information from the receipt, like the date and the amount, the total amounts here. And we should see that in a second, automatically populated for us. All right, so it looks like it got the date and it got the amount, and you can even scroll down and check to see if those are correct and change them if necessary. And then we'll go ahead and select a project. So this is our project. In this case, I'll select training, and then category, we'll just say airfare, even though this is a target receipt. And I'll go ahead and I'll hit done. You could continue entering more receipts if you wanted, but I'll go ahead and hit done. And then if you see there, we have an expense report that's created under the training project. We have one receipt in there. You could keep adding receipts if you wanted, but for the sake of the demo, we're going to submit one. So I'll go ahead and hit submit. And that will kick off the UiPath side of things. So to show that, I'm actually going to open a virtual machine that UiPath is running in. All right, perfect. And normally you wouldn't see this happening. This would all just automatically be happening for you, but we're going to make it so that you can see it. So I'll go ahead and hit execute. And now I'm not even touching my keyboard at all. This is all UiPath entering all the data related to the expense report that I just submitted for me. So it's going to enter like the date, the project, of course, my name, the amount, and even the image as well that I took.
It's important to note here, by the way, we're using actually a free version of UiPath. We're using their Cloud Automate. There are obviously enterprise solutions as well that you can use, so you can do more parallel jobs and things like that. But it's interesting to know that if you're looking to get into the RPA space, you know, you could look at, you know, free options and lower tier options as you start to kind of investigate and work your way through it.
Definitely. Yep. So that was a success. You can see that it entered the expense report and it saved it, and now it's pending supervisor approval. So that made things really easy for me entering an expense report. I'll go ahead and hit OK, and that will close our virtual machine. And with that, that's the end of our demo here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeff and Dylan. That's really great. We wish we could make all our tasks that easy, and now we can. So I'm going to turn it over to Sandy to share a case study with us.
Thanks, Norma, Dylan, Jeff, and Mike. I just want to make one comment. Can I borrow that solution this weekend for my expenses? I'd like to first whet your appetite a little bit on our case studies. And really we have a couple case studies, but the one we're going to focus on is a few years ago we worked with a leading global provider of gas detection products for industries that were related to mining. So we used, as the screen shows, we used automated testing with Selenium, RPA, Auto IT, and we use that testing on all applications in a somewhat complex environment that included web, Windows, embedded, and mobile apps. What the net is, in utilizing these technologies, we showed back to the client 60% productivity that was able to be utilized in using this experience. So a great return on investment. We're also beginning a project that I think really reflects some of the demonstration we're shown today by Dylan and Jeff. We're beginning a project that's going to build a reference solution architecture at a utility company. The intent is to automate 100 or more different invoice formats into Oracle financials. We'll use the Azure Form Recognizer product and service. We'll also possibly utilize some cognitive services that integrate automatically into the forms data into the financials. The client and also our team are also looking at the RPA technologies of different technologies and possibly using Azure API managed services. So 2 use cases, we have the experience, and that whets your appetite a little bit from a use case perspective. So now the question is, how do we get started? Can we help in your current situation? So we, as Norma shows here, we have an RPA 6-week workshop pilot that can include the RPA technology of choice, as Mike showed. And before we start this strategy session, we believe that the communication to management, whether it's a business unit, executive, or top management within a company, we want to be able to create communication, we want to create awareness, we want to create commitment by management on these particular projects. So for the first week, we're going to have a strategy session, right? We're going to identify the opportunities and establish an ROI for RPAs, right? And we're going to select a target, a use case for the automation area, and who's going to be on the RPA team. The second week, we're going to talk about tools and designs and compare the various different tools that might fit your environment and define the RPA architecture like we're doing today with this utility company in that second week. Then we get into basically the POC and the bot pilots, which we think is going to be around 3 to 5 weeks, but it will depend upon your specific use case. It'll include the environmental setup, the environment setup, configuration, the bot development that we have, and the workload automation. Then in week 6, we validate all of our findings. We walk through the RPA pilot solution and we discuss, does it fit the purpose? Do you have the budget? Will it solve the problem that you're looking at? And then week 6, we create a roadmap, right? How you can go forward with the team, your team, and how we can collaborate on success. It will be beneficial also, and as Mike talked about, to consider an RPA center of excellence. We build these for cloud centers of excellence, and we can also do that from an RPA perspective. So a little bit about, that's our workshop and pilot. I'll talk a little bit about us briefly. Here's a little stats and facts. Norma, if you can go to that. And really our key differentiator. So our capabilities really around RPA technology and also Microsoft is that we were a certified partner since 2004. We've driven, we're a UI path partner. We also utilize all those technologies that Mike discussed. 99% of our solutions and projects that we review every Monday are on time, within budget, and have been successful. and we've delivered on over 2,500 different projects. We have locations that can fit you, that are near you, from whether it's Denver, Orlando, Philly, Virginia Beach, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, Chicago, Cincinnati, and of course, our headquarters is in Pittsburgh. So we have a team that's ready, and we are also, if it's important to you, we are a minority certified partner, and we're up for partner supplier of the year from a national basis. So that's a snapshot of us. And then we can go on to the next slide, Norma. So we're ready to help you. We talked about the 6-week workshop and pilot. We talked a little bit about architecture and development from an assistance perspective. So maybe you're ready to begin an RPA project and you'd like to have maybe some outside insight on it, or you'd like to start from scratch. Our team's ready. And again, we want to reemphasize the RPA Center of Excellence. So we believe that we see a tremendous amount of momentum with RPAs. We see it in cognitive services like form recognizer we described. We also see the combination with AI and machine learning that we will be able to solve business issues that are important for you. So my ask is for us to sit down and discuss this and how we can solve a use case with your company. So please reach out to me. Please reach out to your local CEI sales leadership, and we can do that. So challenge our team, and we can create a POC that will meet your needs. I'd like to give it back to Norma. Norma?
Great. Thank you so much, Sandy. So at this time, we'll move into the Q&A portion of our webinar. I don't see any questions yet, but it's not too late. So if you have a question, you can use the question panel at the right or raise your hand. Either way, just send a chat if anyone has any questions. In the meantime, while we wait for questions, I will take this opportunity to plug our fall series of technical webinars. So those of you who might have joined us along the way, we've done 6 webinars this summer on various different topics. Thank you if you joined us for all of it or any of it. So some of our topics for the fall series of webinars are going to include SQL migration, BI and data science, AWS customer data platform, IoT, AI and cognitive services, and potentially some others. So you want to stay tuned for that. Also, we will, because we just finished the series, we're going to be sending out a brief survey to anyone who attended any of our webinars in this series to get some input on how we can improve these, as well as what other topics you'd like to see in either the fall or maybe winter. So just checking again, I still don't see any questions. So I hope, in closing, we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you again to our wonderful presenters, Sandy, Jeff, Dylan, and Mike. And we would like to invite you to get started with RPA. You can reach out to Sandy or to your favorite CEI account executive. We're ending a little early, but since we've gone over on our last one, yes, everyone will get the presentation as follow-up, as well as links to the recording. So we hope that you have a great afternoon. Thank you.